Hello, and welcome to February, everybody. Apparently January's over. I can't believe that we're already into the second month of this year. I don't know where time is going, but that's life. We are excited to have a new author and to kick off kind of a new series for this month where we're talking about publishing. Now, there's so many different options when it comes to publishing nowadays. Before, it was traditional publishing. That was it. That was the only option you had. And then it was like, well, there's self-publishing. And it's like, okay, well, now there's either or. Then there came hybrid publishing. Granted, a lot of hybrids out there are actually just vanity presses. And we're actually going to be talking about that in another live stream later on this month, the differences between hybrid and vanity. Because there are differences. But today, we're going to talk about the differences between traditional publishing and self-publishing with an author who has done both. And we're going to be kind of going into the pros and cons of their experience with the traditional route first, and then what they decided to do by going the self-publishing route. So very, very excited to introduce to you guys the best-selling author of the Infidel Books, Angela R. Watts.
Hey guys.
Welcome, Angela.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm super excited.
Yes, so excited to have you here and on to talk about this. Now, for everybody, before I let Angela dive into telling you all the amazing things about herself, I know Angela because we run in some of the same circles and have so for a little over a year now. And I actually met Angela when I was publishing my first book and got to know her and have watched her publishing journey and the freaky mind meld that we've both had with very similar things and concepts within our fantasy books, which is super eerie. Hashtag maybe a crossover someday. That might have to happen. But that being said, Angela, I would love for you to introduce yourself, who you are, what you write, and kind of a little bit of what your journey has been like so far.
I write a little bit of everything. I'm best known for the best-selling series, The Infidel Books, which is a post-apocalyptic thriller series. That one is complete. That finished up this year. And then I have the Remnant Trilogy, which is a dark fantasy. That one will finish up this year, so that's a 3-book series. And besides those two main genres, I do thrillers sometimes, I do middle grade sometimes, I do romance sometimes. If it's a genre, I'm probably going to write it eventually. And if I'm not writing, I'm an editor. I'm a freelance editor. And I also have way too many pets. And I feel like that's pretty much everything about me.
And by too many pets, fill them in on, because like I follow you on social media. I've seen the types of pets that you have. Some of them are a little strange and a little out there. So
do you have iguanas as well?
Oh no, not iguanas.
My sister has a gecko, but I don't have a reptile yet. I do have fish, cats, dogs, horses, a spider or two, maybe, and snails. But I am hoping to get a snake and maybe a few rats. I'm not sure. But yeah, I really like animals. And that's probably evident in my stories by now. But, it's better than what I could be collecting.
That's true. That is very true. I got to say, though, I was just like, I don't know a single soul outside of maybe like the Irwins down in Australia who would be like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to create a breeding program for jumping spiders.
You'd be surprised how much money you can make off jumping spiders, though.
What?
Yes. One breeder was charging like $40 a spider, and that's not including shipping. So if you wanted to make some money and you like spiders, that's a thing.
I mean, I'm not making a ton off books right now, so jumping spiders. Sorry, go ahead, Sarah.
No, I was just like, what's in it for you? Like, can you cuddle with it? Like, does it give you kisses? Like, I'm not judging by any means. It's just that I can see why people love pets because, the kind of pets that are like dogs and cats because they snuggle, they give you
Touch
love.
it, yeah.
But with spiders, like, what do they give you? Like, what's in it for me? What's the sell?
I don't know. They're very, very cute. And I know that's stupid, but the jumping spiders are really adorable, actually, and they have a lot of personality. So you can just kind of watch them like you would a goldfish, I guess. But they're definitely interesting animals.
Do you have a favorite? Like parents have a favorite child?
No.
You're lying.
I don't know if that's true because, like, you share pictures and be like, "Hey, look, here's this. Here's
You
Joe."
are a liar, young lady.
Perhaps.
Most people have. There's like the crazy cat ladies, the crazy dog ladies, and Angela's the crazy spider lady.
And snail lady. I've
That's a
literally
new
had
one.
people send me snail memes and stuff like that just out of the blue, and I'm okay with that. I'm fine being the snail lady too. That's fine.
All right. Well, so this is actually very, very good to know because if none of us can make it in publishing and selling books, we can always start trading spiders on the black market. So it's always good to have a backup plan, guys.
I bring you the best ideas always.
Yes, I bring you best ideas.
Well, that would be awkward in jail. What are you in for? I'd rather not say.
You don't
I was
want to know.
dealing Black Widows on the down low, guys.
Pet tarantula.
That is good stuff. Okay, so now that we know that we can sell spiders on the black market along with snails, which I'm super fascinated to find out what I can get for that because living out in Eastern Oregon, we have plenty of those. We're going to dive into the questions that we have prepared for Angela. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them over in the chat. The chat is open. We are accepting them. And if you have one, we'll pull it up and put Angela on the spot. So, Angela, what led you to go the traditional publishing route? Because I know that that's kind of where you started and then we transitioned. So let's start there. How'd you get there?
I actually didn't really start with the traditional publishing path. I started self-publishing when I was 16 in like 2018, I think. And then 2020 hit and I was like, it'd be kind of fun if somebody else could like budget all of this. And I really just wanted to see if I could do it. I wanted to see if I could traditionally publish. So that's kind of what kicked it off in 2020. I just wanted to see if it was something that I could do. And I knew that my budget would really appreciate a small break for a while. But yeah, I was just kind of an impromptu decision, to be honest. Oops.
No, that's all right. Because I feel like it differs for everybody anyway. But when it came to like going the traditional publishing route, obviously most people will query agents and spend a lot of time doing that. What did that aspect of kind of going the traditional publishing route look like?
For Golgotha, it wasn't an extensive pitching process. I pitched to a few agents, but at that time I wasn't really confident in my skills or anything, so I didn't really pursue that deeply. Like some people will pitch for like years trying to land an agent, and I knew that wasn't really what I wanted. I did want to go with an actual small publishing house, a traditional press, and I got offers from a few different presses, and then I went with the one that I thought would best fit my needs. So the pitching process actually wasn't that extensive for that one book, mostly because I just didn't want to actually get an agent, and I didn't want to spend too long in that process for that specific book. I felt like it was more of a learning curve, and I just wanted to see what I could do.
Sure. So it wasn't so much about the agent. You went to represent yourself to the independent presses that you were looking at, correct?
Yes.
Cool.
I did get some agent interest, but ultimately, that didn't work out.
Yeah. So and I'm curious because like I've never done any pitching, and I know you're currently pitching a middle grade. I don't recall whether that was trying to land an agent specifically, or if it was just again to straight independent presses.
For the middle grade.
Yeah.
The middle grade right now, I'm honestly, again, just seeing what I can do. I'm honestly just curious as to what happens when you try new things. But this one, I'm more open to an agent if that happens. I have a lot of agent interest right now, and I also have the traditional small presses. I've got a few of them interested. So it's going to be what it is. I'm kind of just praying about it, and whichever specific path that God has for it, I trust that's where it will end up. But patience it's a virtue when it comes to the pitching process for any project, and I'm not a patient person, so
yeah, the long game of pitching and finding the right that
it's tough.
Yeah,
it's not yeah.
So when it comes to some of the pros and cons of traditional publishing, I would say, because it's kind of a broad question, but what would you say are some of the pros and cons that you heard about while you were looking into traditional publishing versus then what you actually encountered once you actually got a publishing deal with an independent press?
So there are a lot of pros and cons, and usually the pros outweigh the cons when it comes to traditional publishing. I know that when I went into it, all I heard was that like they would cover expenses. So, the cover editing, marketing, things like that, it can add up. It can be expensive. And especially in 2020, I wanted to break from that a little bit. I just wanted to see if somebody else could cover it for me. So that was definitely a pro in my eyes. I was excited about not having to invest so much into one project. Another pro is you have a very strong community. This means a lot to most people. They want to have a support group. They want people that they can, work alongside and trust and stuff. And that's a really fun pro too. As an introvert, it didn't mean as much to me as it might mean to some, but it's definitely something that people consider when they're choosing which path they want to take. And another pro is outreach. If you sign with a traditional publisher and they have an audience for the book already and they're ready for a new book, you don't really have to work too long to build your initial audience. But I will say that that's a pro, but it has fine print to it, because even though, yes, the publisher has an audience, they still do expect you to build your own audience. And I learned that pretty quickly that, counting on a pre-built audience doesn't always get you what you expect. And for me personally, the pros that I was going into it expecting didn't actually work out. So I know that there's a lot of pros to traditional publishing. And if you're a new author, they can work out. But for me personally, it did not go like I thought it would at all. So the cons kind of became what the pros were supposed to be. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. So and with that, was that part of just having to represent yourself as part of that con? Is that because then you're having to deal with these people directly, or was it more of just it was just part of the process of that particular publisher or indie press that just didn't seem to connect well or work?
That's something I'm asking myself right now, to be honest, because as I pitch the middle grade, I do have small presses interested right now, and I'm left thinking, okay, when you sign with a traditional publisher, you have to be able to trust them, and you have to be able to work together in the process. And sometimes, you sign the contract and they change something or they want to do something differently, whether in the book or marketing or something, you don't have control with that. If they decide they want to market it a certain way, you can't really change that. And then you're kind of clashing heads with them because, it's your book. And sometimes the author is correct when they have an idea or something. And it's a struggle to trust a publisher that much when you go into that kind of deal. So, like, I know for me personally, I think that if I found the right publisher, I might try it again. I might, try to find somebody that I trust and go through that process again. But if you can't be completely certain, there's a lot at stake. And oftentimes it just feels a little safer to be in complete control so you don't have to have those issues with somebody else, like a middleman kind of thing, and you can kind of play with it yourself, you can't really work things out or try new things with a traditional publisher. They kind of make decisions for you. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, I think that it answered it really well. These are the types of things that we want to try and help our viewers understand. There are always going to be pros and cons to anything form of just like literally anything.
That's life, man.
Yeah, but especially when it comes to traditional publishing, I know that for many people, that tends to be the gold standard by which they judge whether they've made it as an author or not. And in particular, it's because they're told that, the publisher is going to market your book for you. And I think that in some cases that's true, but they can also, as they're marketing it, not market it how you would want them to do it. So it's kind of that catch-22. It's like they might, but you could end up kind of getting screwed on the back side of it because they were doing it in a way that you didn't want to do.
Yes. That is very frustrating. And again, people do find it a pro that the traditional publisher will do the marketing for you, but anymore in today's world, they still want you to market a lot. So you still have to do it yourself.
Yeah. So with that, Simona, did you have any questions?
Yeah, actually, I was just thinking. So, is that why you decided to self-publish your book, because the cons kind of outweighed the pros, or was there like a specific issue? Let's say, I don't know, they didn't secure enough reviews, and you just wanted to do your own thing.
I think the pile of the pros turning to cons kind of veered me towards doing self-publishing, just doing it myself. I'm very independent. I don't like counting on other people for things. I don't like letting other people make decisions for me. So just as a person, as an individual, self-publishing works a lot better for me because I have control. I'm able to try new things whenever I want to. And it's more of a hands-on interactive process. With traditional, it's a lot less hands-on. Yes, you're still marketing, but the really fun stuff like the cover design, the editing, the formatting, stuff like that, you're not doing that yourself, and you don't have control over who's doing it. And I know that, personally, when I worked with a traditional publisher, I did not end up enjoying most of that process. I wasn't able to, trust some of the people that I was working with and things like that. So doing it myself just seemed to make the most sense with certain books. Because again, I'm pitching the middle grade, and I actually have the self-publishing plan mapped out for that book. If no one picks it up, or if I just decide, I don't really feel like signing with anybody, I could just do it myself because I really enjoy self-publishing.
Oh, that's good to know. I really love that because, Lindsay L is a best-selling author, great content creator, one of the OG of the YouTube video essaying. She published traditionally. And one of the things that really kind of stood out to me when she talked about her experience was that she got stuck with one editor who barely replied to her emails. So the second time around, she actually hired outside of the contract that she had. So basically, she was secured an editor and she had to put her own resources to work just to get through this process in a way that would be beneficial for her. So do you have any thoughts on that, or?
I understand. I was in a similar position, especially with the editing process. It was not exactly cohesive to the story. So I completely understand why she did that, but to me that's disheartening, because you sign with someone and you hope that they'll help you find people that fit the book, fit your vision, and they don't always do that. They're still a small house, a traditional publisher, and they have their team, and their team may be capable, but if they're not fit specifically for that author in that book, then it can definitely make the process a struggle. So I understand. I've been in a similar situation, and it's not fun.
Right. I was just really surprised. Not that I didn't believe her. It was just, yeah, I guess disheartening is the right word for it. Because you think that, oh wow, I finally secured a deal. I don't have to think about hiring outside. I don't have to pour my resources into that. And then you have
You have to
nothing.
do
You
it.
have no one to work with. You have no one to work with. And it's such a hard process emotionally, psychologically for writers to write their books, and they really need someone to lean on, and that's their editor. And then she didn't have anyone. It was just,
I'm another
I
one.
was baffled. It was mind-blowing. So I guess, is that one of the what other benefits do you see in self-publishing except for that?
So generally people, when they self-publish, they are looking at the dollar bills, the money, the income. And to be honest, that is actually a pro, but you're not going to make $1 million right away, if ever. And that's fine. And if making money is one of your goals, you can do it. But one cool thing about self-publishing is that you can make that a goal. And it's a lot easier to make a lot of money self-publishing versus most, not all, but most traditional publishers. And that's because they do take a cut. So, you have to kind of replace that. You have to sell more books to make more money. And again, it just goes back to, if you know the market, if you know the genre that's doing well and you're interested in making money, you can choose a genre that does well, write the books, do it yourself, bring in all of the money. For me personally, money is one of the pros. It's not a huge pro, just because, again, what I want out of this, and I want to reach people. I want to write books that God gives me, and I want to publish those and share those with people. So if I were limiting myself to, a traditional publishing house, they only publish certain things, and they might turn me away for a super small reason, but that small reason is like what makes the book. So self-publishing for me, I like the benefit of giving stories that I can be proud of. I like the benefits of, engaging with my readers and things like that, and just being proud of what I'm producing and having control of the process. Just every step of the process, I'm in control. I can learn new things, and try new things. And it's exciting. It's a lot of work. And a lot of people will not try self-publishing because it is so much work. But I definitely think it's worthwhile, no matter why you're doing it. If you're trying to make money, if you're trying to help people, if you're just trying to get your books out there, no matter what your why is, there's a lot of benefits to self-publishing. And it's just a little easier to do once you invest in your research and stuff like that up front.
Right, right. And if you don't mind me asking, I know that finances are sort of a sensitive subject, so you don't have to go into details. But for the sake of our writers to kind of get to know this world a little bit better, you don't always get an advance with traditional publishers. Is that correct? Sometimes you only get a cut. Or can you talk
Yes.
about that a little bit?
Yes. So I actually I've got the list of the publishers that I'm pitching to my middle grade to and stuff like that. And it's actually very uncommon from what I've found to actually receive an advance. Most small presses, most traditional houses and things like that, they will only pay you royalties. So if your book sells, you get a split off, the copy and stuff like that. But generally that's not a lot. You don't get a whole lot off each book.
Right.
Yeah,
And if you do get an advance, what do they base it on? Like, how do they calculate that? How much do we give you on the potential, on the market, or what's your experience with that?
I actually don't have any experience with advances, so I don't actually know. That's an interesting question. It makes me kind of curious.
Yeah, because like anytime I think about writers who, it's not a surprise that Stephen King gets $400,000 advance. Of course he does. There's a return on investment secured, right? But let's say that a miracle happens and a traditional publisher decides to just go out on a limb and give this new writer a chance. And we want to give them advance because this book is really good. Is it only based on that? Because the book is really good and it's quote unquote sellable on the market? This is what's hot right now? Or how do they calculate, if you're a new writer and then they don't really
Yeah.
have that security of, oh, for sure we'll make money off of this, we can afford to give an advance?
It almost makes you wonder if maybe that's why they don't actually do advances much anymore, because the market is so big and booming, and there's so many different books coming in from so many different people that maybe they actually gave up on advances.
They would go bankrupt.
unless you're an actual like big name. I think this is. I think it's very similar to what we're seeing with the movie industry. Is that the movie industry is not taking risks. They want an absolute guarantee on the return that they're putting into the movie. And so there are very few new ideas, and like, oh, well, this has worked before, we're going to just do that again. It's why you see kind of a copy paste formula with, I would say, a lot of authors. And I mean, it works well for them. I think of Nicholas Sparks. It's the same book with a different picture on the front and maybe a gun involved at one point in time. And there's going to be rain. And so
Yeah,
there is some form of
yesterday I was at Barnes and
precipitation
Noble and I
happening.
saw Nicholas Sparks's book just lined up, and it's all these people almost kissing in the rain on the cover. And I thought about you, and I wanted to, like, my battery died, so I couldn't, but I so wanted to take a picture and just send it to you because I knew you would have loved it. It's just all the same cover. But yeah, there's definitely a pattern in the entertainment industry for sure. And I think that I think Matt Damon, it was, who recently talked about this, that before they actually these studios could rely on almost like a second release in form of a DVD. So it was like, if the movie release and if a theatrical release didn't work, they could always count on, oh, there's going to be a DVD, we're going to make money off of this for sure. And now there's not, they lost that option with the streaming technology coming into place and becoming popular.
Right.
So it makes sense. But like for like books, I'm not really sure. I know that audiobooks are really booming right now, but other than that, I don't really see a reason why, because you know what I mean? It's a little something, it's just something escapes me about this.
Right. Well, I think part of it too, and I believe Mackenzie Finkley, one of our other resident author coaches, had brought it up in a previous stream, that 80% of authors do not even earn out of their advance. So there really isn't any incentive for a big name publisher unless you're like, Adam Grant or Neil Gaiman or Obama or somebody like that who's writing a book, to actually give them an advance for their time. A newer author is kind of like, we'll just split it. Yeah.
They don't, that's the irony. They don't need it.
Yeah. And so you just kind of be like, well, we'll just not give you an advance, just go straight to splitting the royalties, because if they're not going to be earning out of it anyway, it doesn't really serve a purpose at that point.
Right.
Because it's only to the detriment of the author.
Right.
So,
well, it
any
takes
other
time to
thoughts?
people to get over this, I mean, traditional publishing has been around for hundreds of years, and it's just kind of, it's engraved in people's minds. So I think people will get over it and will become more open-minded, but it just takes time,
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So, Angela, you've gone from doing some self-publishing and then pursuing traditional publishing. And it depends on the book, right? And this is what we've talked with our authors about, is that it can change from book to book. Like, you don't have to be like dead set on one thing for the rest of your life. So like, what hurdles have you faced as an author that you've had to overcome, doing kind of both routes? Because I do know for a fact that you did the crowdfunding for your audiobook, which is it's been submitted, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So you've now kind of run the gambit of everything that's out there for the most part.
Almost everything, yeah.
What are some of those hurdles that you've had to overcome?
Oh, well, you bring it up. The crowdfund. That terrified me. I'd never done anything like it. I'm sure you remember my annoying messages. How does this work? And it's just like a simple tech question for the Indiegogo website. But that freaked me out. I have to admit, the GoFundMe thing, whatever, for Golgotha's audiobook was a huge hurdle. But it worked. It did super well. I mean, it did better than I thought it would, to be honest. So that was really encouraging. Generally, the hurdles are like the process of publication itself. I mean, writing comes pretty easy to me, usually. Might have had like a mini breakdown today with my mom complaining about my current work in progress, but it's writing. But the hurdles usually come with like trying to choose a cover. I know that's a stupid thing, but I'm just not good at those. I'm not good at that. And pacing myself. I'm not very good at slowing down or resting or anything like that. And when you're self-publishing, when you're in control of your own career, your writing and stuff like that, it can be super easy to burn out or do too much or do too little. When you have like all the hats, you wear all the hats, you have to be really careful not to, forget some other hats, like to eat. I forget to eat a lot. But the biggest hurdles have just been, pacing myself, being patient with myself. Sometimes the covers aren't easy to figure out, or sometimes the writing, pace is not as fast as I'd like. And like the crowdfund, just have fun with it. I struggle sometimes to actually have fun with what I'm doing. I get so caught up in like tunnel vision and focus and work and stuff, but seeing everyone like supporting the crowdfund and just so excited for that project was really encouraging. So my usual hurdle of, does anybody like care about this? It was definitely like combated that month. So that was awesome.
Yeah, it was really exciting to see, because I mean, you didn't have a huge goal that you were trying to go for, and I think you raised really close to about $1,000 to go towards.
Yeah, over 1,000.
Oh, over 1,000! Awesome. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I like about the crowdfunding model. Again, something that we're going to be going to even more detail later on this month is the beauty of getting people involved, with what it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
So then it's not in isolation. You're pulling people along. I know one of your perks was someone gets to get a character in book 3 of the Dark Fantasy trilogy that you're writing, which, obviously is super fun for fans to be able to be like, oh man, not only do I get to support it, not only do I get book swag, but I also get my own character. What does that even look like? I don't know, but oh my gosh, I'm in it.
We didn't already create our characters based on real life people that we love / hate.
Maybe.
Right. Yeah. And like, so like when it comes to self-publishing, I know one of the big struggles, and you've already have kind of touched on this, is the financial aspect of publishing. Now, if I have done my math correct based on just kind of the market rates for most editors, and you've done some developmental editing and other forms of editing as well, what is the estimated cost if you're going to straight self-publish? At the minimum amount, let's just like the bare minimum. We can't say free because we all know how those books look on Amazon. But what would be the estimated cost that, because for a lot of people that's a hurdle.
Per book?
Yeah, let's just say per book.
I mean, I do like 5 a year, so you gotta be specific.
That's true. That is true. Yeah. So let's just say you're doing one book.
This one. I will round up. I will round up and probably say about $1,000 per book. And that's kind of including. That's kind of including the ISBN. I purchased my own ISBNs through Boker, something like that, which is pretty expensive. Those things are expensive, but roughly $1,000. And that's not including formatting anymore, because I also bought a software that I could do that myself, because I was spending like $600 a year on formatting, and it was awful because I'd have to like redo it 3 times. I went through so many formatters for like 2 years because they just didn't do it right. But I'm doing that myself, so that's saving me money.
That was one of the hats that you were talking about earlier.
Formatting, I never thought I'd do it, but Atticus it's been awesome.
Yeah, Atticus is a really sweet program, and I haven't even gotten a chance to really fully play around with it yet.
Yes, it's pretty cool. I actually had somebody ask me if you can do like full page images, and you can. So that's another reason I was like excited to self-publish my middle grade book if I do, because I can do like my own illustrations, and Atticus lets you put the illustrations in there, and I'm excited.
That's pretty cool. Now, does the because $1,000 now, and this is based on my own research through like Readsy and stuff like that to find out what market rate is.
Yeah.
And the estimate that I came up with was that it would be between cover design, copy editing, proofing, which is not editing. For those, just to be clear, developmental editing,
like it, but it isn't.
It is, yeah. You'd think it's kind of tagged on there at the end, so it's like, it's just lumped together. It's like, no.
Yes.
No. That's like marrying your sister. You just don't do that. Then line editing, and sometimes the copy editing and line editing tend to kind of go in at the same time. And the overall cost, and I don't think this was including the ISBNs when I did my initial guesstimate, was about
to estimate, because you can
get packages,
which is another thing to keep in mind. If you're not doing a lot of books, you can get like a cheaper package or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And so like the estimate that I came out with was about $5,000, and that was because developmental editing is the most expensive form of editing. For an 80,000 word novel at market rate, which is 2 cents per word, you're looking at roughly $1,600. Granted, you can find editors that are doing it for less than 2 cents a word. But is the $1,000 that you're doing, is that because you're doing a lot of your own editing?
I was going to say, she's a developmental editor. She's doing everything. This is not accurate. Do not listen to this kid. She's a pro. She does not need this.
She does have like 8 books under her belt, so like we'll give her that.
That's another. I think it was it Chris Fox? He had a few nonfiction books, and one of his points was like, he was trying to save money. So once he hit like book 20, he stopped using, I think it was a developmental editor, and he kind of like trusted the process and then trusted his betas, because he keep using those. But that's a close example of what I've kind of been doing. I've been writing since I was like 6. So the actual process, learning about what works, what doesn't work, I'm still learning. But I have noticed that the times that I've hired developmental editors, they didn't actually catch anything. They didn't have any issues. The feedback letter from one came back and she was like, "You've done everything right." The only issue she had in the entire manuscript was like I used sentence structure needed to be varied a little bit, but like developmental editors so far have not actually found a lot. So I stopped hiring those. And I've learned to kind of trust my main editor. So what I have is I have the self-edits after I write it, and then I move on to betas.
Right? Call it revisions editor.
Yes, yeah, revisions, sorry. Self-edits, revisions.
Oh, yeah, no worries. I was just, because our audience is familiar with this term, so yeah,
yes,
no worries.
Yes, sorry.
You're doing great.
Yeah. I do that, and then I move on to the betas, and they catch most everything because I've been blessed enough to actually find a group that knows what they're doing. Because a lot of I work with authors who are starting out, and they hired the developmental edit, and we work together. Sometimes I keep walking through the process with them, but usually they're new authors, and they don't really have the experience of the process, or they don't have access to, feedback from other people who know what they're doing. And I think a few of my betas are actual editors, so they also are technically editing my book for me, but they do it for fun, so they don't let me pay them. I've tried to pay my betas because I was like, dude, let me do it, and they don't let me. But and then I work with editors who actually will keep an eye out for the big picture issues when they do the copy edits and line edits, but they're still at a cheaper rate. And so they have their rates and stuff, which I don't think are the going rate, but they'll also just keep an eye out for the developmental, even though I pay them for like the copy and line. And then my mom helps me with the proofreading, I think, so I still get free stuff. I still get free work done at home. But yeah, and I do think it's important to work with editors, especially if you're starting out. So yeah, like the $1,000 to publish a book, it probably won't be that cheap when you're just starting out, because it is important to work with the editors. But I've worked with a few of them, and I'm a little bit more confident in what I'm doing. So I wouldn't hire that editor for every single book.
Right.
I think
And
that makes
traditional
sense.
publishers, do they give you a developmental editor? Do they do developmental edit? I suppose they do, but
what I found with most traditional presses that I've worked with, they kind of want an editor to do all of the things. So development edit, copy edit, line edit, they want one person to do all.
That's not how that works.
And that's fine. It might be cheaper, but yeah, they usually have one pair of eyes going through the book at once. And that's how they do it. It is nice when you self-publish, when you can kind of pick and choose. You might have one editor do the developmental, and then you might have another editor do it the copy editing. That's also cheaper. That's another thing that you can save money with. Sometimes if you hire different people for different jobs, you're going to save some more money.
Yeah, and especially because you can, especially like with copy and line editing, like we mentioned, it tends to go together. So you can usually get a bundle, and it usually costs less than if you were to, try and pay separately, for several different people.
And it saves you time.
Yeah. So I love the idea of, because like as a developmental editor myself, and I've done developmental edits for a wide range of people. I like that it's based on your experience level that actually then kind of brings the cost down versus being like, well, I can afford to pay more later and, put out a crappy product the first time around.
Yeah.
It's like, no, invest more on your first several books, and instead of relying on people for the long run, which is still something that can be done. But if you're trying to save, it's like, what can I learn from these editors. Like I learned I used comma splices from my copy editor. I use them all the time. Guess who doesn't use comma splices anymore? This guy. So that's going to save me a ton.
Yes.
But that idea that, you're, as you publish more books, as you begin to grow more accustomed to the process, you're going to increase your skill set if you're trying to.
Yes.
If you're just like, I don't want to have to learn this, I'm willing to just pay somebody to do it for me. That's totally legitimate. Just know that you're going to pay more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly what I'd say would happen. Because I was paying a lot more per book when I first started, because it matters to me to get that extra feedback, to hire more editors and stuff like that. But once you go through that and you're comfortable, you can try new things and new things for new projects.
Yeah, you get to experiment a little bit, which is always fun. So, Angela, do you have any advice for authors? I mean, you've already kind of been giving some great advice for them, but if they're choosing specifically between traditional and self-publishing, because I needed an editor to look this over, between those two, what advice do you have for newer authors who they're like, I've been told I should do traditional publishing, otherwise I'm not a legitimate author, which I hear that a lot.
Yes.
And, I want to go the self-author publishing indie route and, be a part of that community. But, I is the broke because author, what advice would you have for them?
I wouldn't rush into anything. I kind of rushed into self-publishing, and I don't regret it because I love it. But you have to undo certain things if you've rushed into it. Like, Stephen mentioned, the editing can be expensive. So if you publish poor quality books to start with, you eventually have to go over and do that again, and you just put more money into it. So don't rush your decision. Really sit down and ask yourself your why. Why are you doing this? Why do you want to self-publish? Why do you want to traditionally publish? If you're only like traditionally publishing because that's a real author, like that's what real authors do, and people have told you that, that's not a good reason. Especially nowadays, the industry is changing so much and it's super exciting. So you no longer have to be, limited to what people say or think about you. You can do your own thing and be very successful doing your own thing. And that's one really cool thing about self-publishing. So, even if it takes some time to make the choice, or take time to save up, because self-publishing, you do have to pay for things yourself, but both have their rewards. It just depends on what you want. What do you want to get out of it? And then that'll help you choose which is best for you. And another thing I want to really encourage you with is that it might change book to book. I mean, maybe you self-publish one series and then you try to pitch another standalone and it gets picked up. Just trust the process, trust yourself, and trust the book. It'll end up where it needs to be when you are true to yourself and you do what God says to do. So
I love that. I think there's that stigma that a lot of authors have to like choose between, like either you're the snob going the traditional publishing route, or you're the indie author.
Yeah.
Unless you're really successful, then no one cares about anything but that.
Right. Yeah. Then no one cares.
Then no one cares.
Yeah, but it's like until then, there's that stigma that people are trying to pick between, like even with for me as a hybrid published author, I have people jump down my throat about that all the time, but yeah, doing what is right for the book, I think is and where the book is going to make the most impact. I think that's a great way to look at it. Yeah. And be like, okay, I'm going to self-publish this book, and, this next one, really feeling like, I should try and go the traditional route with it. And then you could go the crowdfunding route, the next one, And, if you write your own autobiography, just vanity publish it and, hand it out to family and friends because no one else is going to buy it. It's one of those things, unless you're like, how to like smuggle smuggle spiders on the black market. Like that would be an autobiography I think everybody would read. So definitely try and get that one. Add that one to your list of to-dos.
International
sure.
spider smuggler.
For sure.
In terms of software, and we'll kind of wrap it up on this one, especially for people who are thinking about going the self-publishing route. I know you've already mentioned Atticus, that does formatting for ebooks and paperbacks. But are there any other helpful tools that you use to try and really make the biggest impact with your self-publishing as possible?
Well, as you said, I is poor, so not really. I know a lot of people pay for like Word programs and Word and Scrivener and stuff like that. I use Google Docs. It's free. I've actually had Word crash on me too many times for me to trust it, so I use Google Docs and I use Atticus, and that's pretty much the extent of what I'm using for self-publishing. Like I mentioned with the middle grade, I actually have the possibility to illustrate for that one. So I did invest in an iPad this year, I think. But if you're self-publishing on a budget, you can really, really do well on very little. As far as softwares go, I don't use a whole lot. I'm not techie, also, in case anyone was curious.
Well, that's awesome because I'm the complete opposite, and I buy all of the techie things.
And you already did publish an illustrated edition of your City and Snow Stars.
Yeah.
Oh,
City of Snow and Stars. Sorry.
Yep. Yeah, and that one, again, that was a crowdfunding route, and I did the same thing that I actually went to Angela. I was like, should I have people, be able to get their own characters? And she's like, yeah, I've done that before. I was like, sweet. I'm not crazy. Totally going to do that. Now I'm paying for it.
It's a fun idea. It's a fun Oh, no.
No, I mean, I'm just kidding. No, my story weavers are absolutely amazing.
Good.
Absolutely amazing people. And their characters are probably getting their own little mini anthology. I'm just, that might be happening. But
sounds fun.
No, yeah, it's a good time being able to invest, and that's what I like about the self-publishing as well. Why I chose to kind of stick more with that route where I would retain creative rights to my book was I want to be able to to do what I want with it and make it the best that it possibly can be. So I love the insights that you have given us tonight. Any other final thoughts before we wrap up the stream?
I mean, speaking of crowdfunding, that is a really booming option. So even if somebody's like looking into traditionally publishing for the support group, like the community kind of aspect, I have noticed that like with the crowdfunding, that exists. I mean, it's almost like having your own mini support group of really dedicated backers and things like that. So it's kind of the same attitude as a traditional publishing house, but you're still in charge and you're still on top of it. So yeah, just stay true to what you want to do. But in today's world, there are so many options that you guys can do that just pay off so well. So just keep doing it.
Keep doing the thing, guys. Awesome. Well, Angela, thank you so much for joining us tonight and having this discussion about traditional publishing and self-publishing and sharing your own experiences, both good and bad with, just the whole gambit of things. Really appreciate it. And I know that it's going to help a lot of other authors out there. And for all of you wonderful viewers that are watching this, if you have any additional questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below. You can also follow Angela. All of her information is down in the show notes. So if you want to follow her on her self-publishing journey and in basically all of the books that she is writing, because they are many, they are legion, then definitely go down and check out her stuff as well. And then next week, we're going to be talking about crowdfunding specifically as its own thing. And then the following week after that, we're going to be talking about the differences between hybrid publishing and vanity publishing and how to spot the differences between the two, so that way you're not suckered in by a vanity press posing as a hybrid publisher. Because believe it or not, even the big five have their own hybrid publishing models. So it is a legitimate way to go, but we don't want you to be taken advantage of. So we'll be talking more about that at the end of this month, which very, very excited about as well. So until then, fair people, we bid thee adieu, and we will see you guys next Monday. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.